Welcome. This is Map Marketing and I am your host, Rachel Klaver. I love helping small business owners become more confident and more capable with their marketing. So this podcast is all here to help you do just that. It's me and the help of some great guests helping you learn new skills, new strategies and ideas. Let's jump in and get started. How do you make decisions in your business? Do you tap into your intuition, listening for how you believe you should move and be guided by that to make the big decisions in your business and the rest of your life? Bex Lipp co-founded Wildling Books from a strong intuitive push. She and her business partner Craig, both and their respective partners, all had specific skills that combined together made the perfect mix for an independent publishing company. Designed to publish books conceived, written, illustrated and designed internally, Wildling Books' first book, Aroha's Way, became a huge hit for parents and teachers wanting to help children understand how to better manage their anxiety. Since then, the team has created a whole range of other books, including a series that covers more of the tools that our children need to develop resilience and mental well-being. They sell their books both directly and also through major retailers in New Zealand and Australia. Bex's intuition has led to a new book called Intuition, targeted this time to adults. Today we're going to talk to Bex about why intuition was such an integral part of how she lives her life and how she uses it to run her business. She's also going to talk to us about why it's now okay for her to tell people that she's woo-woo and what she's hoping next for Wildling Books. I have known Bex for a long time, and honestly, every time I come away from a conversation with her, I just feel a little bit more joyful. So I hope that if anything else fails today, that's what happens for you on this podcast. Of course, if you enjoy it today and you want to share it with someone else, please do. And if you've got questions coming out of this podcast, come and join our Facebook group, Map It Marketing. You can answer questions in there and we can help you with your marketing. Right, let's get started with the podcast. Hi, and welcome to Map It Marketing. I'm your host, Rachel Klaver, and I am really excited today because I've got a guest that not only have I had the privilege of knowing for more than a few years, and it is a privilege to know her. She's going to hate when I say that because she hates when people say nice things about her. But a privilege to know, but also someone that I just highly respect, and I know many of you will have read her books and have had some contact or have heard about her books at the very least, because today's guest is Bex Lipp. She is the founder of Wildling Books, and she's also an author as part of those books as well. And she's got a great story about how she started Wildling Books. And I really wanted to have her on today because she is branching out and she has got a new book coming out that's a bit of a breakaway. And I want to talk to Bex today about her decision to start her own publishing company, because that's a gutsy move. What it's been like is self-published. I can tell you it's hard. And by the way, Bex has got dogs. So if we hear a dog, it's totally okay. It's not like a scary thing happening in the background.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, it's all good. We'll just go with it. We've had babies cry before, so, dogs and babies. But yes, without further ado, we'll get chatting. We actually started chatting before this, and I was like, man, we could just do this for the hour. So Bex and I will have no trouble chatting. But Bex, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit about, a bit about you and why Wildling Books started in the first place, or how it came about?
I'm actually the co-founder. So I founded Wildling Books with Craig Phillips. So it's basically just our two families. So Craig's wife Laura does a lot of work with us as well, designing and laying out the books and things. So it's just the two of us. I met them because we actually homeschool. We've all been homeschooling for 7 odd years, whatever, and just met them in the community here in Taupo. And Craig was talking about and his wife Laura to me about the publishing industry, because Craig's been in it for decades. And he's got so many awards and things like that with his illustrations, and it was just sort of one of those things where we were obviously meant to meet, and everything, the stars aligned. And I pitched this idea to him about making a book about anxiety, which ended up being Aroha's Way. And Rachel, you were there. I was with you at one of your Map It days. Do you remember?
Yes.
When I got the phone call that we had won the mental health grant to create that book, which is kind of crazy.
I had forgotten that, but that was actually, because that was a funny old day. Like, heaps of people had registered and hardly anyone turned up. And and I was at the start of the day feeling a bit grumpy, because I was like, oh, and then the day became this magical day, because there was you and there was Deb and a few other people, and something magical happened that day, and that was a highlight of that.
I know, like, it was crazy. Because I'd gone to have some lunch and I'd got this phone call, and I was just like, oh my God, you won't even believe. And I wasn't really allowed to tell anyone, but I told you. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this has just happened. So we won that grant from the Mental Health Foundation to create the book. And so basically it all sort of stemmed from my childhood and my teenage difficulties with mental health issues, which ended up in full crisis in my 20s, where I lost my jobs. I was really high functioning, but anyway, it's quite a long story, but I basically just hit rock bottom and had to go through 2 years of intense therapy, which was like my job, to get myself better. And the things that I learnt over that process was cognitive behavioural therapy, the CBT and DBT, which is all about emotional regulation, as well as just general things for, looking after your mental health. And that was 2 decades ago. And so what I've seen is a lot more talk about mental health and all of that sort of thing, but still that sort of disconnect with, or the you're not really getting any help, or especially parents with, like, what do I do? My child's, and we know that mental health rates are skyrocketing, unfortunately, and it's becoming younger and younger. So I wanted to use what I had learned and put it into books, basically, to help bridge that gap before children ended up in crisis, giving parents or teachers just things to try, and mostly to start talking about emotions. So that's how it all sort of started. And Craig and we didn't even consider, I was just like, let's start a publishing company. We can do it all ourselves. But between the skills that we all had were really just that we all had our own strengths, and they didn't sort of necessarily overlap. So it was really great, because I was able to bring sort of my own business skills, marketing, sort of Facebook management work that I'd sort of done, and as well as me being the ideas like this, I've got an idea, was always like, oh God, what should come out?
Everyone needs an ideas person.
Yeah. And so and I think a lot of the time I just bring the motivation or the energy to sort of drive a project. And so, then Craig had all the knowledge of working within the publishing company, and all of his illustration, and I pushed him into writing, and he's actually, that's a whole talent that is just, bubbling away, because he's just so good at writing as well. So he actually wrote Aroha's Way. So how we sort of work is, I have the idea, I give him the concept, the main subject matter, and then from that he'll sort of pull it all together into a nice wee poem, and then I always write the parent teacher's notes at the back, using the stuff that I had learned and trying to make it in a simple way that parents and teachers and kids can all sort of work together using the book. So it was just winning.
Really, isn't it? Like, you two, like the combo. I think that's one of the tricks with the success, is that it, like, because I think people can look at it and go, wow, where did Wildling Books come from? Like, it came from nowhere. But when you look at it, there was all this background on both sides of skills and things that you'd done, things you tried and had success or not had success.
I mean, I'd failed at some of my businesses, but with that, I brought with me the lessons I learned from those businesses, and, knowing what my I think you learn your strengths and weaknesses, and you know, now that I get older, I'm a little bit more open to taking advice, sort of, and letting people help me, and just sort of playing to strengths a bit more. So not only was there Craig and myself, but then we had Laura, with, you know, she worked at Vogue Australia, you know, so she had all the graphic design, layout, book design, sort of, you know, I think she's won an award for one book design that she did. So between the three of us, and then also my husband, who's amazing actually at editing, he's so good at picking up mistakes, you know. Yeah, so we have an editor as well, but often he'll pick things that we don't see. So and as well as that, he does all the lugging of all of our books all the time, the poor guy.
You always need a lugger. You need a lugger.
Yeah. So he shifted that many books. But so between the four of us, we all have our different, you know, skills, and it has all helped with doing it. So people just think that we're this bigger company, but we've sort of just come in. And I think with the marketing sort of side of it, back when I started, Facebook was a bit easier to use and stuff. And so we were able to get people to see our books. And that's what helped us getting into the likes of Whitcoulls, Paper Plus. We're basically in like every bookshop in the country, and as well as gift shops. And now we're also in Australia. So we've got Dimmicks that picked us up, and QBD stores. So it's just sort of slowly, and it's sort of been more of an organic thing, because we didn't have the presence of the big publishing companies, so that when they release a book, they're just everywhere. They're in all stores all over the world or whatever. We didn't have that. We've had to slowly work at it, and we've been really lucky, because people have loved the book, so they've gone in and requested our books from shops, and they have then you know, got our books in that way. Yeah.
Because I was going to say with this, like, because even though you're a publishing company, as a interloper, as a new one, essentially you were still considered initially as a self-publishing company.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I agree with you there. Like, you know, I've had books published by Penguin, and then I did this one, and I was my book this year, and I suddenly was like, this is really hard. I bitched about the lack of support they gave me, you know, but actually they got my book on everything. They did book launches, they got me on podcasts, they got me on the radio, they did all this stuff that I was like, oh, what is that, you know? And trying to do it yourself is actually, like, people underestimate. I think it's the same with lots of businesses. We have this amazing product, but it's the marketing that you don't realize chews up so much of your time and energy.
I think people, so we were getting like daily emails about can I publish, can we publish their books? And it's like, well, we're just two families, you know, and we're trying just to do our own books. We don't really have the resources, because it's also the you know, cash flow, you know, having to print, and then as you grow, that actually becomes, the outlay is huge, you know. We've been lucky, because we've been really supportive where people have pre-ordered our books, which has helped us to be able to sort of cover those huge costs of ordering, you know. And we've got to the point where we sort of order 10,000 copies at a time. So you know, big money as well. So people would be contacting us all the time, and then they're saying, can you know, I've got a book, you know, because everybody has a book, and I'm sure I
have books, but you know,
I have loads of books as well, and we can't make them as fast as I have these ideas. But you know, so I ended up writing a little thing about getting published, and I have a link on our website about that on the Contact Us page, about how you can do it yourself, because it was taking up so much of my time trying to reply to everybody that was, you know, thinking, oh, well, I want to do what Wildling Books have done. So yeah, but there is a bit of, you know, we're just really lucky that we've got, you know, the skills that we do within our small team that's really been able to make it what it is. So yeah,
I know that you, because even the way you talk, like it's something where you can really see how you always see that full team effort. But I guess a lot of people, even like with Craig, like I
you very rarely see a picture of Craig. Like, he definitely hides in the background. As the
He's like me, but he pushes me to the front.
Yeah, I was going to say. So
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah. So I think, like, for one of the things, like, I do consider, like, you are a consummate marketer, like a natural marketer. But one of the things that's really changed, you kind of alluded to before with Facebook, is more and more businesses like yours have to have the specific face. You can't hide behind. How do you cope with that in terms of that feeling that is the expectation of, I've got to put my face up, as someone who doesn't really like doing that at all?
No, I don't. And some of that stems from, my past mental health issues with body dysmorphia. And I used to think I was so disgusting. I didn't want anyone to look at me. I was housebound for a long time. I just, thought if anyone was laughing, it was because of how hideous I was. It was really, and so I still have little bits of that linger, like that's, almost scars, I guess. So I hate putting myself, especially on a camera, but I've forced myself to do it because I know that my story, and because I have such a maybe complex, and there's lots of different layers to it, not only from my mental health journey, but also parenting. I have an autistic son. Like, there's lots of different layers of me and that I can share. And so I really, sometimes it flows easily, and other times it is a bit of a struggle. And I think also because I'm an introvert, I prefer to hide away.
Yeah.
But I really am the one that has to step forward within the business. So, and I'm happy to do that because, like I say, we all have our strengths and we all have our parts to play, and that's just what's worked for us. So yeah, keep doing it.
It's funny about the introvert thing, because I think the reason I feel so comfortable in front of the camera is I'm talking to a camera and not a person. I'd far rather talk to a camera than talk to a person.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone that's like talking to me in real life ever, but like, I feel more comfortable, like, because the camera doesn't judge me. Like, I might look, oh gosh, that didn't look as good today or whatever, but I go, oh, people are saying that anyway. I kind of switch off from what I judge myself as of what I'm looking at, and I separate that. But the camera thing for me, I now do feel more comfortable, which is a crazy thing, talking to a camera than I would talking to a person face to face.
I loved radio.
Oh,
That
yes,
was my thing.
voice.
So I've done a few radio stints, and I was on the Nutters Club on News Talk ZB, and I absolutely loved that because there was no camera at all, but I was able to talk to people calling in. And I remember one call was a father with a teen that was just like, because I'd been telling my story, and you could hear the pain, and and he was so worried. And I've got so much out of that, and I really loved it, but because there was no camera. But but I guess it's one of those things. It's a bit like exposure therapy. I just keep doing it, and it gets a little bit less, and
it gets a bit easier. And it's really interesting, just for the record, for people that, because most people don't watch the video, they listen to the podcast. There's a saying, which is that people have a face for radio. When it comes to Bex, even though she's got body dysmorphia, she actually has a face for video. So it's just a reminder too, that sometimes our brains and the reality aren't the same.
Oh, no. So that's body dysmorphia, and that, a bit like anorexia, where they look in the mirror and they see, this fat person. I really had a very skewed idea of what people saw of me, and it's and the funny thing is people say, oh, you're so lovely to look at, and I think that they felt so sorry for me. They had to say that to make me feel better. But that is when you're in the, when you're so mentally unwell, that's where your head is at, But I'm pleased that I've come a long way.
Yeah, but it is interesting, I think, for me, I was bullied as a teen. It took me a really long time to actually understand that some of the problems I was having in business were actually related to unhealed situations, as being, and just this whole idea of the lack of my worth, of like, how my pricing was impacted by how I had been treated as a teenager and how I'd reacted to that more so. And like realizing that I'm 51 and I still have value issues that are related to something that happened when I was 13.
Yes, and that's where, you know, we get triggered by things that we've never really processed because we were never taught how to deal with these things. And it's only as you get older that you sort of start to, well, some people do, be aware of those things. You know, you start to notice, is that because, you know, those things happened to me when I was younger? One of the things in therapy that was a big help for me was being the observer, and that comes into the new book a bit, actually, because it's being able to step back and look at yourself, your behaviors, and what you're consuming and all these things, and then you're able to, you know, see where you need help, or, you know,
we're gonna take an unusual break because I just realized my laptop's not plugged in and I don't want it to run out. We'll cut it out. Okay, hang on. Okay. I was like, it's such a good conversation and I would just cry and disappear. Okay, we'll get started again.
I just have to stop.
Okay, and Bex is going to take, okay. Right, I did actually have a question for you around this because I made a note about it when you were talking about Aroha's way, because I was thinking about, I used to be a parenting educator and work in early childhood, and one of the things that I thought was, I know for me, a lot of my healing came when I became a parent, because I would read books about how to do stuff with kids, or like teach them how to regulate their emotions, or understand what their emotions were. And as I was doing it, go, I think I need to teach that to myself. Do you think that that's part of this? The reason that it's a success with the books that you've got is that they have actually not just helped the children that are getting exposed to it, but it's healing the early childhood teachers and the parents and others on how to identify those things for themselves.
Absolutely. Like, it's we write them as much for the adults as the kids, and that's why when we first did it, and you'll see lots of books now have exactly that. They come out and they've got the parent notes at the back. And I know books had done that before, but we like make it a part of, especially the Aroha books that we do, because it's like, I know the stuff because I went through 2 years of, you know, going into the Taylor Centre 3 times a week, and I learnt the stuff. But when, you know, you're talking about diaphragmatic breathing, you know, not everyone's going to know that. You only know what you know. And for most of us, our parents certainly weren't teaching us these things because they didn't know. So it definitely was really important for me that when Craig wrote the nice, lovely poem for the children, that then I explained what was happening in that story for the adults. And then I often always will put questions like, you know, have you felt this way, you know, and talk to the child, and then just having those conversations between the adult and the child is really important. And hopefully that brings up awareness for parents, you know, like, oh man, you know, I could have, and as we get so many emails from parents going, I needed this book as a child, I wish I'd had this. But at least I've got it now, you know. So we're very aware that when we do it, that we're not just teaching the children, we're trying to help the parents as well, you know, because unless you've been in therapy, you won't know the stuff. And that's the whole bridging the gap is what we're trying to do, because it just doesn't seem to be hadn't been happening. You know, we having talk about it's okay to not be okay, sort of, as long as you keep it to yourself, sort of. Yes. A little bit like that, and it still is a bit like that. But, you know, just trying to give some, you know, and it's great now because there's heaps of books coming out, you know, about it all. So about helping and emotions and that sort of thing. So it's great. It's really good for the children. That's what I'm hoping, is that we break that chain where you sucked it up, you didn't talk about it, you stopped crying, you know, you shoved your emotions down. And I've really loved learning about stored emotions and how, you know, it's like energy, and we always talk about that in the book, and that you actually need to release that energy. And if you learn to shove it all down and keep it, it's stuck there in you and can make you sick and can cause all sorts of problems, addictions and things like that going forward in your life. So yeah, that's definitely what we wanted to aim for, is to help all ages, even
because
though they're children's books.
I think one of the things I find that really relates to me, because I'm pretty sure you know, but I've been pretty open on the podcast. I had weight loss surgery, in July, and I'd already lost quite a bit of weight before. Oh, thank you. But
you always did anyway.
But I feel really healthy, and I know it's a sticking point because I still felt like I could present myself and be confident on camera, no matter what size I was. I didn't feel like, but it's been really interesting losing weight and seeing that it's more. I feel easier to move around, which has made me more confident. It's been a weird experience. But I spent 6 years before that really working on my headspace of why I was struggling with, like, why it was a problem for me, what was going on, and understanding lessons. But some people who don't do that, who jump straight into weight loss surgery, you can get this external success space, and it's that kind of that stored stuff where you get this external representation of success, but the head is still completely mucked up. And you mentioned before high functioning. I think, when you're talking about, you can still manage to keep everything together on the outside, but the inside was a mess. I do think like my generation, I'm Gen X, and probably older millennials, and then boomers definitely, we were taught to just suck it up. And so we don't actually often understand what our emotions are. And I know for me, from eating, it took me years to work out what my emotional eating triggers were. And, I realized one of them was like, if my finances were under stress, I would want to eat because it was kind of like my body was going, store up now. Understanding that helped me realize how to reduce the impact of those triggers if something was up and down.
It's so fascinating. And right? I don't understand why I describe like we're all these balls of emotion, like we come out and it's just like, and we don't learn about it.
Don't show
yeah, but just and it's like, it's actually fascinating, what emotions are teaching us, the lessons, and it's it's guidance. And that's where it's sort of what I wanted to do with the new book,
which we're coming to. So I'm glad that segues.
Well, because I feel like your emotions and your intuition are actually like there's a real link there.
Yeah.
And I think when I went from, being, on my own and having my own mental issues and trying to work through that, but then becoming a parent, having children, that just was a game changer with regards to my intuition when I didn't use it. I certainly got slapped around, knew you need to actually start valuing this voice that you have and you're worthy to listen to yourself and not just, being told what to do by everyone else. But and how the emotions and how I was raised and how society is, we've really lost that inability to listen and have that connection within ourselves. I feel, and I think that's definitely connected with the emotions and learning about, it's just so fascinating to me. It's absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely to me too. And for me, it's been a really interesting thing because like you, I've got autistic children, and they have different ways of processing this or exhibiting it, and sometimes it's bigger and sometimes it's heaps smaller. And learning that and tipping into your own intuition I do think that as a business owner, the times where I haven't listened to my intuition have really hurt me. And
absolutely. It's the same with me, Rachel. Honestly, when I go with my intuition, that always is when the magic happens.
Yes.
And I have had such magical, amazing things happen.
Yeah, me too.
But it's always been when I've been really driven by that. Yeah.
And I think too, and this is another thing, is sometimes I have found that my intuition was broken because of a healing that I had to have in the way that I related to someone. For example, I would be attracted to a certain type of business, other owner, or things like that, because I felt like it was saying a big yes to me, and learning that wasn't. I had to rewire some intuition as well. Like I had to but so let's talk about, because your next book, which is very different to all the books you've done before, is actually called Intuition.
Yes.
Yep. And what's the subtitle? It holds
the answers you seek. So I'm
a bit nervous. I mean, you're excited, but also a bit nervous about this.
I am very nervous because this is, I guess, part of it as well is it's really revealing a bit more about who I am.
Yeah, I know.
You know, so I'm stepping into this very vulnerable place of embracing that I have a spiritual side that I, as I've got older, I feel like there's this desire for a sense of belonging, and, you know, that I didn't have this identity that I was always trying to, like, who am I, sort of struggle, which had me feeling lost for a lot of my life, especially in my teen years and early 20s. And then you become a parent, and as a mother, you're like, I don't even have my own thing anymore. I'm just here to serve and care, and you know, so you lose yourself there as well. So I guess it's me sort of stepping into this space of like, it is actually who I am, and I am a bit woo-woo, and I do believe that there's energy and that we're all connected, and whether that's through God or, you know, this collective consciousness, and embracing that really. And I think also learning about where I'm from, and my, you know, ancestry has been really important too. So I was born in Scotland. My mum, and, you know, I'm basically 80% Celtic, Irish, Scottish, and the
spiritual side.
But also Viking. So I've got Norway and Iceland with a little bit of French thrown in there. But basically that Celtic Viking ancestry, they were very connected to the earth, that oneness, a real sacredness between, you know, all living things, or everything in within the planet. And so it's sort of returning back to that, and I just feel a greater sense of peace. And I'm hoping that that this book will be a little bit of maybe just getting people to think about. I think that's all of the books, that I just want people to start thinking about, you know, do I listen to my intuition, or, you know, have I got this connection there, or whether they're religious and it's like a way of connecting deeper with their God, or, you know, but having that belonging connection and fostering that again, because I do feel that it's really connected with a lot of the mental health issues we have, that we don't necessarily have that. We're quite isolated in little bubbles, and we go to work and we make the money and but there's this missing piece, this belonging, this meaning. You know, what is it all for? What am I here for? You know, like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I've had moments of that where I felt really lost, and it's like, why am I here? You know, like, what is my purpose here? And I guess, you know, because I've been embracing the spiritual side to myself, I've really done lots of work, lots of reading, and it's just, I like I say, I'm just finding a lot more peace as I'm becoming more connected with all of that.
And do you think that, like, so, because it is one of the things we talked about before the podcast started, was that you have made a decision. Actually, I want to ask you a question first. Did you know you were Celtic? Did you know that before you named the business Wildling Books?
Oh, yes. So, and Craig is exactly the same.
Right?
I'm sure we kind of must be somehow related, because he's like my brother, you know. He's basically got the same as me. He's got this Celtic Viking combo. And so
fascinating.
Yeah. And so, you know, we're kind of really drawing on that, you know, and I think it's just awesome. Like, you start looking into it, and, you know, I'd watched Vikings, and I was like, oh my, and I know, you know, my grandmother's was Glaswegian. She came here on a boat with, you know, mum's one of 7, and, you know, mum was born in Scotland as well, and nobody could understand my nana. She was so thick, her accent and stuff, but she would tell us stories, you know, about Scotland and stuff. But, you know, they're real warriors and really tough people, but that connection, there's so much I think it's a bit similar to Māori as well at the moment, like really learning again and reviving their culture and finding that connection again, which is so important, like, and so I think we all, need it.
I think so too. And I think it's, I know, with my husband number 2, who will be the last husband. But like I think one of the things that I was really interesting, because he's Dutch. My mum's Dutch and came on a boat with a family of 8. And I think what was really interesting is she was so delighted that I was with someone who was Dutch. And there was this kind of connection of going, here I've got this person who fits into my history as well. Like, I do think connecting into it is just so.
Oh yes. So Chris is born in Germany, and like me, came here as a baby, so we sound Kiwi as. But he did his ancestry, and he's very much Germanic and also Viking. So we have this sort of crossover. But the Germanic people as well were very much that sort of pagan-y, sort of very much connected again. And I think, my mum says we're all Indigenous from somewhere, and so that was, just sort of going back and looking into all of that is just fascinating to me. And then I realized, I was like, that's why I love trees. That's why I have this connection with animals, and that's why I love herbs. And now I'm like right into gardening and, and the healing ways of, plants and things like that. So my ancestors would have known all about all of that. So yeah, it's been fascinating.
So Wildling Books, you have made is the overriding publishing house for your books, and then that's also where your books like Aroha's Way and your big book, is it the Big Book of Feelings? Big Book of Little.
So it's called How Do I Feel, but it's an emotion dictionary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that book and all those other ones that are in there, like your there's a sequel to Aroha's Way, but then you've got this book Intuition, and you haven't published, while that's published as part of Wildling Books, it's created an imprint. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. So an imprint.
What is an imprint?
I guess it's like a saying, it's a little bit like a trading as. So publishing houses will have imprints, so it's almost like a sub branch underneath the main company. So like Penguin will have lots of imprints and underneath it. If you have a look, most publishing companies are owned by just a few in the world. There's a few, and that they sort of, all these imprints sort of come out from underneath them. So it was really fascinating. I didn't know about this, but Craig, obviously, he's worked in the industry forever. So he was like, let's create an imprint. And so this one is called Bound Books. And so basically it's just, it has a different little logo on the spine, so it won't have the little wildling child head and the the wolf hat. So this is a Celtic design of sort of rope all sort of bound up. So again, it was our way of sort of pulling from our ancestors, and because this is a little bit different, we wanted to have that imprint for it. So.
And how is this book in terms of, like, obviously it's a book for adults as opposed to the ones that are booked specifically for children with the benefit of helping, but how do they connect, like in your head? How do they connect for you, like, or do they feel very separate books?
I feel like for me they connect. Yeah, because I feel like our emotions are in some ways these messages, and where are they coming from, and it's energy. Our emotions are energy, so almost feel like our emotions are a little bit spiritual in a sense. And so I wrote How Do I Feel, and it's like this dictionary of emotions and how things feel in your body. And it's the same with intuition. It's like starting to really step back and observe how I'm feeling, what's happening in my body, what is it trying to tell me, because I feel like we have this inner compass, which is the intuition. It doesn't speak. It's not that ego that's talking to us in our head. It is an energy that's sort of moving or pulling or pushing us, just in subtle ways. Sometimes it's not so subtle, especially with parenting. I've found it's gone like almost a screaming energy, like, what are you doing? You know, so that's where it's been the most sort of prominent, but also in business, I've found. It's been, and it has, I try to, you know, I've put an intro in the book, you know, and just sort of, it's more again like just prompting people to start that inquiry, you know, that it's not instincts, which are different to intuition. Your instincts are there to keep you alive. It might get you to act if there's a fire, you know, you're getting out of the building or whatever. Your intuition is more subtle, you know. It's and I feel like it's a link to our subconscious, you know, so and training ourselves to use that more. So that's what I'm hoping. So we've got the book, which has a bit of an intro, talks about intuition, but then it is more like a bit like an oracle deck, which we also have, but it's a bit of a flip to a page and maybe get some guidance. And I have exercises. So for each one, it might, you know, like I've posted up about water as one of them, so the water element, and it's basically prompting you to get into water, as water is a cleansing, healing, you know, and actually it's really connected to emotions, so trying to move old emotions within you and release it. So I really have pulled from my woo-woo a lot, so I'm hoping I don't scare everyone, but you know, there might be an exercise to burn some a smudge stick or a sage stick to clear the energy in your house, or it could be, you know, doing some cold dips like the Wim Hof methods, or using meditation. So each one will have a little bit of a exercise on it, and there's about 45 of the most stunning illustrations that Craig's done. So I'm hoping people will get something from it, and
And it's interesting because as a business owner, like I think, you know, when you know a little bit about, you know, 5 or 6 years ago when our business was in crisis, I had to go swimming every day just to get through the day. And I would feel cleansed from coming out of it. It wasn't just the exercise. It was that kind of like thing. You know, I know that we put sage sticks in the office at some point and just got rid of some yucky. And so like, even though, you know, we talk about personal life, I do think there's this crossover for a lot of us where we often separate our business life from what's going on inside us. But if we're the head of the business or the leader of the business or an integral part of it, what's going on inside is going to really impact our business.
Absolutely. And I felt my intuition was saying to do this. So whether it works out or not, I felt guided to do it. I wanted to embrace this side. And I actually feel like, you know, I talk about some of it. It's like, you know, there's one page which is about your inner circle and about creating rituals and things like that. You know, I felt really ashamed, I think, about being woo-woo or spiritual. And I actually, as I've got older, I'm like, I feel like it was a missing part, and maybe it's a missing part for a lot of people. And, you know, you burn a sage stick, but that's what would have been done for a long time. And it would have been to clear viruses. You know, they would have burnt certain herbs to cleanse viruses or you know, bugs and things like that, and was just a very normal way. But a lot of that got destroyed when the witch hunts were on. So that is something that we lost a lot through that period, because the healers and the spiritual women, you know, and men, you know, I've read books where they say millions were killed, and that were people that loved plants and healing. And so I think maybe I'm carrying a lot of that from generations of what happened, and so that shame of, you know, got to keep it secret, because what will happen if I tell people that I'm, you know, I love crystals. Oh my gosh. You know,
I went to a phase of sleeping with a crystal on my bed just to get through it. So, you know, and I don't often talk about that stuff. I agree with you, because I like people know me for my pragmatic marketing ideas, like and then you can't go, how can I be pragmatic and woo woo on the same side? And I do think for multi-dimensional, I'm pragmatic because I'm woo woo. Like there's a gap in between, and even the fact that I have to call it woo woo to make myself justified instead of saying that I do listen to my own intuition, which actually feels a lot more scientific and normal to me. Like it isn't. So with the book, do you feel like this is a time where you're going to have to step out more as well, like physically step out and show your face more because this is more of you?
Yes, yeah, I think so. And I have to embrace this, because none of the other books that we've won awards for, or done so well, would have happened without my intuition. Yes. That's what was the driving force to make all those other books. And so I want people to understand, and so again, I'm going to have to share that story with people, is that once you really connect with your intuition, that's where the magic lies. You really start uncovering who you are and what you're here for. And I know that a lot of women, once your children start to grow up, there's a space there that you're like, and now what? Who am I? What am I to do now? And so I'm hoping that this will help, with the exercise and things, for people to tune into themselves and, start looking at, what do I love? What inspires, what do I love doing, and how can I bring that into my life and share it with others? So we'll have a notebook that will come along with it too, just a little wee notebook to record dreams, or I'm a real big fan of signs and synchronicities that pop up in weird ways that take my breath away. I'm like, oh my God, how did that just happen? Or, I meet somebody and then they start talking about something that I've been, thinking about meditating on or whatever, and I just think, oh, this is so cool. Like it reaffirms to me the work I'm doing with my intuition. And so we'll have a little wee notebook for people to sort of start to
tap into it.
Into it. Yeah. And so we'll have a card deck as well, which I can't wait to get. I can't believe I'm really gone into this woo-woo, and it's just, yes. I love card reading. I absolutely love it. And it's going to have gold edges. I'm just like, really just, I can't wait to get my hands on them. So
it's awesome. Because I do think, like, we offer, even people that say, oh, well, I wouldn't do that. I look at it and think, I know Rod and I went and looked at a house once, and when the real estate agent was looking at it, she couldn't get the key to open it. And we just went, she tried like 4 or 5 times, and we just went, no, we don't want to see it. Because we're like, it should feel easy for us to come into this house. Like it's
a sign.
Yeah. So quite often, I think that even those of us who might go, I don't really use it or something like that, I don't think Rod, once said, I wouldn't describe myself as woo woo, but then he was the one, I think, who went, nah, this is not the house for us. I think some of us who are really in touch, some people who have always used their intuition may not even realize it's intuition that they're using. And it's just that many of us, mainly mums, I think, have lost that ability to listen to ourselves, because for years we've had other people's voices, and they heard so much louder that we couldn't hear our still soft voice in us, perhaps. And so it's a gift to have this. And so what do you feel like, what's next for Wildling Books from this? Have you got more picture books, or do you want to do more adult books, or a mix? Or
well, I don't know how these ones are going to be received, and I've always had that huge imposter thing because I dropped out of school. Everyone's pretty surprised that I'm writing, I'm not really a writer, but again, we'll see how it's received. But I just, again, I'm just get driven by what comes up, and that was coming up at that time. We're just starting a new children's book, which will be in the Aroha series. Nice. And that is about the pathways in our brain.
Oh, I love that.
I don't want to give too much away, but I think this one will be really, if we can nail it, it's going to be very, very helpful for, again, not just children, but hopefully the parents, adults as well.
I love that, because I know that when I realised that our brains are essentially lazy and they just go the fastest pathway, if you rework the pathway,
that's about paths.
Right. So, yeah, but it's like, I think that's perfect, because I know that changed my life when I actually realised that I could just rewire it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think that is a powerful story. And so, I mean, I guess I'm going to be very soppy here. And I think on behalf of lots of people that read the books, I reckon that there are a lot of people out there that want to say a big thank you for creating the Aroha series, because they have made such a big impact. And I am super excited about Intuition. If people want to get, because you're doing pre-orders still at the moment, aren't you?
Well, the pre-orders haven't actually opened, but we will open them soon. It's really hard because we don't want people to wait 4 months, and with all the shipping issues and all of that. So they will be here. They're actually due to arrive on Christmas Eve.
Oh, wow.
So we're thinking they'll be available sort of mid-January. So I didn't really want to open up the pre-orders too far ahead, but in saying that, we probably will do it next week or the week after. So you can go onto the website, which is wildlingbooks.com, and it'll be under Intuition. So, and in there you can actually see a few of the images that Craig's done, and a little bit of how the book spreads will look. So yeah, hopefully people will. We've got some pretty good feedback already from his artwork is just next level. It's just, I always go, oh my God, so cool. Yeah.
I was going to just on that though, I will just say I have actually bought 2 or maybe 3 books in the last month that don't come out until February or March next year, and I've already bought them because I want to have them when they come out. So,
but we, like I said, when we first started, it was always pre-orders because of having that publishing company. So we've really tried to not do that, but we will, because people are asking us.
Yeah, I want to buy. I've written on here, buy the book.
yeah. So I will set up the pre-orders very soon.
Yes.
All right, how about that?
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, it sounds great. I feel like your intuition is selling you. No, it's me, not your intuition. Thank you so much for being part of the show. If people do want to read, find your books, besides all good bookstores have got them in New Zealand and some in Australia as well. Yeah.
Yep.
And gift shops. And if they want to buy them directly from you as well, where do they go?
So wildlingbooks.com. So it's wild with ling, Ling, books.com. Yeah.
Perfect. And just thank you so much for being part of the show. So lovely having this conversation. It was lovely.
Okay.
One of the things that I think stands out for me most about this podcast is that real importance for us to stand in our own truth and to trust ourselves. And whether you are prepared to say you're woo-woo like Bex, you want to go hug a tree, put your feet barefoot and feel the breath of the air on your face to help you make decisions, or whether you want to pray or go for a walk or just have a still silent moment. It is so important for us in business to allow ourselves to use intuition. Of course, it always is best combined with looking at some of the cold hard facts. We can really believe in something, but if it's flushing money down the door, we have to sometimes be honest about it. But there is definitely a mix of making sure that we're making good, strong and clear decisions, but also ones that fit in and tie in best with our intuitive side. I'm wondering, how often do you take time out to still yourself so you can hear that intuition? And maybe that becomes part of your business next year, taking that time out to listen, to hear, and be inspired by what you've already got inside yourself. I'm hoping this was a podcast that you really enjoyed listening to, and it's inspired you to go and take that time more. I'll be with you next week, sharing a little bit of marketing teaching. That's how it rolls at the moment. It's guest one week and marketing teaching the next. And I hope you join me. And please remember, if you've got questions or you want to talk about anything that's in this podcast, or just about asking a normal marketing question, do come and be part of Map It Marketing on Facebook, where you can ask those questions. Plus, I sometimes put silly things in there for you to laugh at too. Have a great week, and I will catch you next week. If you love what you heard today, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you loved this episode in particular, I'd love it if you shared it on social media. Remember to tag me in so I can say thank you. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.